and they roped it off. And the ball was hit up there. You were in big trouble, you know.
And that's the days, too, when the crowd, you know, buy their tickets, they were backed all the way up to Falcons Street, almost to Curtis.
Yeah. I mean, there was fan support like you wouldn't believe it. And I'm sure today some enthusiasts are probably not like that. It was the only game in town then.
Yeah.
You know? And in those days, there wasn't any television. And it was just radio, and people used to stay glued to this stuff. It was a hot pennant race.
Yes.
And do you remember Jake Pittler?
Yes, yeah. I was never very close to him, but certainly by name.
Well, I can remember my dad talking. They used to stage, and then when they get serious, plan to get increased fan support, fan attendance, to increase attendance. They would have arguments with the umpires. And then they argue amongst themselves. You know, Jake and my father used to go at it, and they would plan what they do and what inning they do this. And then the papers would be full of this stuff, and boy, the fans would come out in droves the next night.
So like a wrestling match, they were the...
Well, there was an element of theatricality, a little showbiz in both their veins.
Well,
I think some of that rubbed off on me.
Wanted.
And the fans liked that, but I can remember when my father managed Olean many years later, in the 46, I guess it was. He, 47 maybe, because that's when he first started. Olean was the Dodger farm.
Yeah.
And that's when he first went with the Dodgers. He managed Lockport in 46, I think it was, 45. And then he, but anyway, I remember him arguing in Olean, and the veins would pop out. I thought, dear God, I used to get so involved. And even in the early 40s, I'd get so involved, too, because I was just a little itty-bitty guy, you know. So my dad would argue. I thought it was for real, you know, and I would get all upset. And he'd say, he'd come back and say, "I'm just kidding. Don't worry, son. Don't worry, son. Don't worry. It's not that serious," he would say. He never admitted that it was an act until much later, and
We're gonna give you something, see if you remember this.
Oh dear God.
Remember all those?
Oh my God, there I am. Oh Jesus, I was a bat boy, kind of.
You spent
at-large bat boy.
You spent a lot of time around the stadium?
Oh God, yes. I was a stadium rat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all I did. I lived to do that. Whenever he'd let me go down there, which was I'd beg to go to every game, of course, and I couldn't. Because part of me was in school at the time, and part of me wasn't. Part of me was at the park. I used to hate it when there's Elmer Weinstein. Remember him, the first baseman, the big first baseman? Was Dwayne shaking? I can't see it. I gotta get my glasses. Here they are. Let's see who all these guys are. I remember Elmer Weinstein. He used to be a pal of mine, and I would love to play with him. And then Johnny Newman too. We'd play catch. Big John Newman.
Good picture of John.
And I used to love that. That used to be the thrill of my life. To be able to play with these guys who were like gods to me at the time. These minor league ball players, most of whom never went on beyond Class D at the time, or if they did, they may have got as high as the International League. But to me, they were gods that walked, trod the turf at Municipal Stadium, and they were these giants who were great ball players, and I got the opportunity as a little kid to play catch with them and take infield practice. I would take infield practice with these guys, and that was a great thrill. That was pretty good, and that was a thrill. That was a real thrill.
It's the year Johnny Newman hit 27 home runs.
Yeah, that was a lot in those days.
Yeah.
Charlie Medler. Oh my God, look at these names. Oh wow. And Elmer. Let's see. Bob Swanson, remember him? Holy smoke.
Ted Weibernach's there in the back row, the second ball player from the left.
Oh yeah.
Ted stayed in Jamestown a long time.
Oh yeah,
Raised
sure.
his family here.
Oh yeah.
Now in California.
Yeah. Charlie Schaefer, there he is. Remember him? He was a pitcher, wasn't he? Yeah.
Schaefer and Charlie Shoup was a pitcher.
Charlie Shoup was a pitcher. He was a good one too. Those were great days. Jamestown had great civic pride about those teams and the teams in those days because they were winners. 41 and 42, they won.
Mm-hmm.
And this one particularly was an all-time winner. One of the better records I've ever had here. And as I say, in those days it was the only game in town. And I can remember people cheering like crazy. I remember one time my dad hit it inside the park. And he tripped over third base, and he scrambled, and the team got up, just as he crossed, as a matter of fact, one time, he stumbled, he hit third base, he stumbled, and he fell right before home plate. And three of the guys got up, the on-deck hitter, and two guys leapt from the bench and dragged him across home plate.
Let's do it the hard way.
The hard way. And he scored just by a couple of feet. And he was so winded because my father unfortunately smoked in those days. Ball players used to endorse cigarette ads in those days. And it was a macho thing to do, to smoke and play. And of course he got winded easily, and that's one perhaps he was not, well, he wasn't old then, but older than most of the players.
Ted Williams and Chesterfield, they made a lot of promotions.
Oh gosh, and I remember Mickey Mantle, I don't even think he smoked, but he endorsed Camel cigarettes. Good God. And of course, I like to full smoke when I was a kid, thinking that was the right thing to do, because everybody did. Now everybody chews this way. Dear God, they did in those days too. Not as many though.
It's interesting, I see here Swat Erickson was a member of that team, stayed in Jamestown.
God, remember Swat? Yeah.
The son of the major leaguer. Lyle Parkhurst was on that team. Lyle still.
Lyle Parkhurst, I remember him well, yeah. Yeah.
Lyle's the third from the left in the front.
There he is, yeah, sure, there he is, Lyle Parkhurst.
Pretty much looks the same.
He does. I do too, if you may have noticed. I haven't grown all that much. My hair's a little longer there. I had a few more hairs, but not too many. Still got the same pose. I've got those shoes still, I think. In those days, I can remember dreaming that one day I would get enough money. Because I delivered papers, too. I was about 7 or 8 years old in this picture. And I dreamed of getting a pair of kangaroo baseball shoes. That's what they used to wear in those days. Kangaroos. And notice I don't have baseball shoes on, but if I'd had them, believe me, I would have worn them.
You would have been on there.
Yeah, they would have been on there. And finally, I saved up enough money to get a pair of kangaroos. And they were, in those days, they didn't have kid kangaroos. They were about that much longer than the regular. But by God, I stuffed them with paper, newspaper. But I got my shoes, and I was so proud of them. Dear God, I remember this kid. He was a bat boy, I think. Wasn't he, this guy here? Or was he? No, I guess not. No,
he was probably one of the younger players.
No, he was one of the younger players. Chet, no, he wasn't a bat. Chet, Kayuka or something like that. Remember him? Kayuka? Paluka? I don't know his last name, but it was yeah, I remember he had a real pockmarked face. And ears, and they called him Dumbo because his ears were like this.
Yeah.
But he could hear the ball coming real well.
Never missed one.
Never missed one. He could hear it. Jesus, what a team it was. The gods had walked between the base paths. Here they are, folks. That's what they were to me. And that's what I remember most about the team. That I looked up to these guys. They were my heroes. And they didn't disappoint me. They did not have feet of clay like the ball players today. There's so many stupid and scandalous. There were no drugs in those days, and I don't know what their private lives were, but nobody was very much interested if they did anything risque, and I doubt if they did. They were all pretty clean living. It was a different time, a gentler time, and a perhaps
very, very serious.
In a way, a better time. At least in my mind it was, because one tends to look back to the rosy-colored glass of time and see the past as perhaps having been better. But it did seem better, and I think it was better than today, because, as I say, they did not have feet of clay. They were my heroes, and they are to this day still heroes in my mind. They didn't do anything to dishonor them.
Greg, tell me a little bit about your dad's career.
Well, my dad started in the sandlots of Detroit. For Koenig Cole was the first picture I ever saw of my dad playing ball. He had a mitt. I think it was about as big as my hand. In those days, the mitts were so small, as you know. And oddly enough, we looked an awful lot alike in many respects. And I can recall him playing sandlot, and that's all I wanted to do when I was a kid, was play ball, and that's all he ever wanted to do. And all he really ever did much. He didn't go. He went to school as little as possible, and played ball all the time. He would skip sometimes to play ball. I don't recommend that to anybody, but that's what he would do. And then he played for another company team. Name I can't remember. Tony Cole was the first one, and he played like Legion ball as a little older man. But he played before it was his time. He's a very good player. He started playing American Legion before he was a teenager, which is pretty unusual. And he wasn't big for his age. He was just good, and he caught the attention of some people, and he began to play more regularly, and then he played regular leagues, not junior leagues, and began to play regular league ball when he was in his early teens. And he almost signed a contract when he was 15, but his mother wouldn't let him do it. So he went to work. You see, my dad got out of high school, and he went to work. He got out fairly early, and he went to work for Fisher Body, because his uncle was the head of Fisher Body. His name was Uncle Joe Mullavey. He was the one who changed the name. The original name of my spelling of my name is Mullavey. Let it be known for the records, which I did not know until I met two old maiden aunts of mine that my grandmother introduced me to in Detroit that lived together, who lived to be 104, I might add. So I'll be around for a long time to tell these stories. The long genes in our family. And these two old maiden aunts had the name Mullavey. And what happened is my great-great-uncle Joe, my dad's uncle, changed the name to Mullavey because he thought it was too Irish spelling, so he changed it to kind of a Jewish sound, Mullavey, from Mullavey to Mullavey, Mulleavy, and pronounced it Mullavey, which could be pronounced Mullavey. And it wasn't until I saw that name on that little sign in this apartment where my aunts lived that the name was Mullavey. My grandmother explained it to me, how that happened. And that's what happened, because he was a big shot in Fisher Body. He had a lot of money and a big house and all the paraphernalia that goes with it, Cadillacs, etc. The cream of the Fisher Body and General Motors car line. And he drove one of those. And my dad always admired it, did the rest of the family, so his nephew, or I guess his brother, my father's brother, changed his name too, along with him. My father's father, rather. My father's father. And so that's how it happened.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And anyway, so as far as his career is concerned, his first professional job was with Asheville in the old, I guess, I don't know what league it was, the North Carolina League? Or Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I would have been. Carolina League.
Carolina League, I guess it was. That was his first professional job, and then...
Teenager at the time.
Yeah, he was a teenager, and then he went from there to Oakland. And, well, wait a minute, maybe not right directly to Oakland. Here in Toledo, as I recall. As a matter of fact, let's look at it. Well, he had $295, not bad. He paid 153 games. The amount, I sold for a lot of money, and I can't remember what it was, but... And he was doing very well in Chicago, and then he hurt his arm, sliding into second base. And in those days, they couldn't... The players were not as supportive as they are now. They didn't have great teachers. You had to learn on your own. And some players, if they befriended you, would teach you, and others would not. And nobody ever taught him how to slide right. You hit your hip first when you slide, so you break the impact of the fall. And he would put his arm out, and he would slide oftentimes on his right side. He put his arm out to break the fall, and he jammed his shoulder, separated his shoulder, and never could throw very well after that. And one of the reasons, till the day he died, we called him Scatterarm, you know. And we used to make jokes as kids of that when he played at Offerman Stadium in Buffalo. Because as you see here by the record, he went to Buffalo, played with Chicago, then Oakland, then Boston. And then in '33 he came to Buffalo and played there for many, many years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 years in Buffalo. And we used to make jokes about the Offerman Stadium wing, the chicken wing there, that would throw the ball into the first base stands all the time because he would overthrow oftentimes, or into the dirt or whatever. He made a lot of errors. Well, let's look. He didn't do too well. Let's see. He made 50 errors one year, 60, 57. And he got, I don't know what happened. He only made 23 one year. He probably knew the score.
Makes a difference.
Yeah, right. That was a good year for him.
Of course, scoring was different in those days too. If they got close to a ball, they called it an error. Today they don't do that.
Well, his errors were mostly throwing errors, as I recall. Even from second base when he played second base.
There's a couple of legends up in Buffalo they talk about, and I don't know if your dad ever mentioned guys like Ollie Carnegie.
Ollie Carnegie, of course.
Yeah.
Ollie Carnegie, we talked about him. I was in Buffalo a couple of years ago, as I told you
Right.
earlier, collecting a plaque for my dad. He was inducted into the Bison Hall of Fame, which we were all very proud of. And all my brothers went there to collect it. And we talked about Ollie Carnegie, the home run king, the bow-legged home run king. It looked like he rode a horse into this park. And that was a great old stadium, Offerman Stadium. Even as much as we like the new one, it's gorgeous and pretty. But Offerman had some hallowed ground, and I was sorry to see it demolished.
What ultimately brought him to Jamestown? Did he bring the family with the Jamestown
Yes,
at the time?
this was the first place. We had lived in Buffalo, but he fell in love with the area, and he knew a guy named Fred Smith, who was one of his best friends, who's still alive today, living in Jamestown, who's a native. And how he ever got the job here, I guess he got to know Harry Bisgeier, I guess, who convinced him to come down here and play and manage. And they fell in love with the area. What's not to fall in love with this area? I mean, it's gorgeous, as you know, and that's why you're here, and that's why Russ is here. Because it's a gorgeous area. And that's why I'm here. I love to come back, why I'm interested in buying some land here. We lived in Lakewood and loved it. And then we lived in Jamestown and loved that equally as much. And it's a great place to raise a family. And that's what attracted him most to this area.
What did Dad do in the off-season?
He worked at Bigelow's.
Bigelow's,
Yeah, he was like the assistant manager of the men's department. And he got along well. He didn't want any pressure job. And he got along very well. And the Bigelows were friends and fans. And they gave him a great deal, believe me. He didn't have to work too hard. They paid him very well. He was a real goodwill ambassador. And I think they paid him more than most of the clerks there. And he was happy to do that. So he enjoyed that. I remember one winter during the war, they used to go down to, and not only he'd go from there and go down and unload things at the old Erie Railroad Station for the war effort.
Yeah.
And I went down and helped them one time. I said, "Geez, this is hard work." And I don't know what the heck we were unloading and loading. Probably had nothing to do with the war effort, but it was free labor. They loved it.
And he was associated with the Jamestown team for, 2 years, correct?
2 years, yeah. 2 years, 41, 42. And then he went to Buffalo. He made a jump to the International League. He managed in the International League, and then he went to, 44. I think he went to Lockport. Let me see. We'll come to the M's here in a minute.
It's in the back.
Oh, it's in the back. And then he went to Olean. And then from there, in 47, he went to the Dodgers and began to manage in other places.
How did he catch up with the Dodgers?
In Nashua, New Hampshire. How did he catch up with the Dodgers? I mean, how did he make the jump from...
Yeah.
Well, he managed Montreal in 54 or 55. Yeah, Montreal. Oh, see, they don't have this right. This isn't right at all. Something really wrong with this record book you have here, because you see, they said in 56 he was with Montreal. Not so. In 57, not so. He went up to the bigs in 56. Because the last year he managed Montreal, he only managed them 1 year, as I recall. They won. Because he went with them to 50, in 58 he went to, they had managed Montreal in 57, is that true? Because he had been with in Brooklyn.
Who hired him at Brooklyn? Or when he went up, was that Walt? Did Walt bring him up with him?
Well, actually, who hired him was Walter Austin, but the owner of the Dodgers, not O'Malley, but who was the guy before him? The old man.
Ricky?
Ricky, Branch Ricky.
Yeah.
And then O'Malley bought the team. I don't know when O'Malley bought the team, but
Not sure of that either.
or maybe I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. I'm not sure whether Ricky was alive then or not. But my suspicion is Ricky had something to do with it. It may be that he just knew Ricky because he'd hired him as a minor league manager.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether O'Malley certainly brought the teams, wanted a new stadium. I'm not sure what year O'Malley bought the team. But I know he made the move from Brooklyn to Los Angeles.
And how long did your dad stay as coach for the Los Angeles Dodgers?
Well, let's see, he left. He was there 58, 59, because I saw the series in 59, 60, in the early 60s. And then when Leo DeRocher came in, whenever that was, in the mid-60s apparently, or thereabouts, he and DeRocher didn't get along too well, and my dad didn't want to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
So he decided to become a scout. And what happened is, more than, I think that decision was not just about DeRocher, but my dad also got emphysema.
Mm-hmm.
He smoked. And in the 60s, it caught up with him. And he got emphysema, and he began to lose weight, and he just couldn't handle being on the road that much. So scouting was a much easier job. So that, coupled with the fact that DeRocher was coming in, made him choose to leave and become a scout. And he was happy with that decision, although he missed the camaraderie of the team. But he remained friends with many of the players. I got to know all through the Garvey era. I could hang out on the bench and the Maury Wills era, and up through the Garvey and Ronce era. He was around. And worked till 1980. And he worked for the Dodgers till the day he died.
Yeah.
Always had a job with them, even though toward the end of his life he simply wasn't very mobile. Well, he could get around all right, but he couldn't breathe very well. He was very thin. And at the same time, Dodgers would never fire him. Job for life.
A great baseball mind.
He had a great baseball mind, my dad. He really was. And they looked up to him and listened to him. He made a lot of suggestions. And he was an innovator when it came to infield. You notice some infielders today, they may make that throw like this.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the inventors of that. He was the one who initiated that. Because he
Soft
started
hand.
teaching that in the 50s. And it didn't catch on right away.
Yeah.
Today, the game is different. He was one of the first to recognize that it was going to be a more mobile game in terms of fielding. When the gloves were smaller, they would teach you to get in front of the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And today, you see players fielding the ball all kinds of ways because they got those big gloves. And he was one of the first to recognize that the game would change with the innovation of the new equipment. And you didn't have to get in front of the ball, although they taught that. But he realized that a lot of players make the throw and the run these days. Well, you would see players go in the hole these days who throw the ball off balance. And if they got a great arm, they get something on it. But the quickness of the release of the ball compensates for the lack of speed, and you'll nip the runner. Whereas if you catch the ball in front of you and then have to brace and throw, even though you may have a great arm, you may lose it, miss a step or two, or be behind a step or two, and not catch the runner. So they do that today, and they didn't used to do that. They used to teach that. He was one of the first to recognize that the game's going to change.
Just to get off the subject a second, what's your recollections of Johnny Newman?
Big. And a home run kid. And a terrifically nice guy, Mr. Nice Guy, and wonderful. And of course, as a kid growing up, he was one of my great heroes because he would play catch with me, and he was always nice to me. And he carried me around on his shoulders a couple of times. He was a great roly-poly, burly guy who wasn't that big. And of course, I knew him over the years. He was always my hero. I remember getting on a bus as a kid to go downtown from Chestnut Street downtown, and then even in high school, he was a bus driver. He was still Johnny Newman to me, but he could hardly, that wheel in those days, wheel would make a groove in his stomach. It would be the belt, boop, and then the groove with the steering wheel hit his stomach. And he got larger and larger and larger. Unfortunately, that obesity.
Did you go on the road with the team in those days?
Oh, sure.
Johnny was
those recollections are wonderful. In those days, in the early 40s, they had station wagons, Woody station wagons, that my dad would drive, And I would sit there with the guys, and I can remember the peanut shucks. We had peanut shucks. They would bounce on the things. They weren't the most stable machines in the world, you know. And that wood body got loose awful fast and rattled like hell. And it vibrated. I can remember the damn wood, the peanut shucks going up and down the thing. And we used to be, 6 to 8 guys in a station wagon. It was pretty cramped. But we had a great time. We sang. We sang songs. We had a hell of a time.
A lot of foggy rides back from Wellsville.
Oh boy,
and Bradford.
Wellsville, Olean, Bradford.
A lot of those stadiums are gone now. They don't exist anymore.
I know.
Jamestown's one of the few that
Isn't that
remain.
a shame?
Yep.
Yeah, Wellsville was a big trip.
Yep.
Because it was those days the roads weren't as good as they are now. It wasn't that the thruway or expressway that you have here, the Southern Tier Expressway. It
was a long way home from Wellsville.
17,
About
17,
17,
right. Wellsville was a long trip, but I made it as often as I could. Of course, stay in a hotel room. Oh, heaven! They weren't the best. They were not 4-star hotels either, folks. And the meal money, I think, was like $3 to $4 a day. If it was that. You know, it wasn't much
And
money.
tried to save that for the families too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Guys, I remember Elmer Weinstein. He used to hardly eat anything. And he was a big guy. He used to try to save that meal money because they used it for their families.
A lot of the ball players stayed in people's homes here, didn't they?
Yep.
They don't, like now they stay in motels or college dorms.
Yeah, they did.
They
Yeah.
were adopted
They had families.
sons.
They were adopted for the summer. Yeah. Well, look at Bull Durham. Some girl could adopt him for the entire summer. Bliss. I'm sure that probably happened. I wasn't aware of it. I didn't even know that kind of stuff existed in those days. But there was never any scandal about anything. There was never any talk. It just wasn't. It was a different time.
Didn't quite a few of the ball players ultimately, if they didn't go beyond the Pony League, just sort of settle into Jamestown? Seems like there's, at that time...
Ted Wybernack.
Ted Wybernack did, and
Frank Schmirker.
Frank Schmirker, Dick Schmidt, and Johnny Newman, of course. And
Lyle Parker's lived here and stayed here.
Yeah, Lyle Parker's lived here and stayed here. And there was one other one that I know, but I can't remember who it was.
Years later,
Frank, somebody or other.
Big Frank Schmirker. But we
Oh, Frank Schmirker, that's it. Frank Schmirker. Yeah, I remember Frank very well. He used to come into Bigelow's all the time.
In fact, a part of last night's ceremony when you put your hands into concrete,
Oh, dear. Yeah.
the fellow that prepared the concrete, he was a professional baseball player, came to Jamestown, John Venable, played with the local team, and made Jamestown his home. Met a girl here and raised his family here.
Yeah, women will have a way of making you stay in the town. Yeah.
He made the mud for you to play in last night.
My God, I got to talk to him because I did such an awful job on signing my name. It's illegible. I can't even believe it. So maybe Philip Morris said I can do it again. Maybe.
Sure.
I may have to pay for some more concrete. But I'll do it.
My father remembers many things about your dad, and one of the things he remembered and wanted me to just remind you was of his yell. Apparently, he had a yell which was.
Well, he had a whistle. That was
Whistle.
they called him the whistle.
Yeah.
And it went something like this. Only he did it 3 times louder than that.
Yeah.
And would be the. He did this little short thing and then a long one. And it was a whistle that he used to gain attention, and he'd clap when he was coaching, like third base or something, and even for the dugout. And it was an incredibly large whistle.
Did he call you
loud
home?
Whistle.
Call you home at night?
Oh yeah, and that was the whistle. We heard that when we had to scoot home fast. When my mother called, we could linger. But when my dad called, we lickety-split home because he was a strict disciplinarian in many, many respects, and then also the nicest guy in the world. I mean, he was never too rough. Although he did some things. My brother and I, one time, he caught us playing in the snow a little longer than we should have. We got soaking wet, and our mother had warned us not to because we were supposed to go someplace nice afterward. And we came in, so our boots were all soaked, etc. My brother Tommy and I. And he picked us up and he went, and my head's never been the same. So he could be a disciplinarian and rather abrupt messages, that had a lot of meaning, and we got the meaning real fast.
How did baseball enter the lives of your brothers and yourself?
Well, my brother Tommy never played much baseball, but he was the only one who didn't. The other two were very good players. My brother Pat was a player, and hung out, worked out with the Dodgers, and as did my brother Terry, as did I. But my brother Pat was a very good player, played for Jamestown High School, as I did too. And as a matter of fact, I was one of those kids who played varsity ball first year, sophomore year, and played varsity all 3 of my years at JHS. And I even PG'd one year to come back just to play baseball because Al Ayers, remember Al Ayers?
They're still living
Now
in the community.
now boys, hit or get hit. That's what he used to say. That was his big contribution, you know. And I can remember my dad coming to practice. Al Ayers had us do things that, you know, as much as I loved Al, and God, you know, knows that I love him. He's a wonderful guy, and I enjoyed playing for him. But he didn't know quite as much as he thought he knew about playing the game. My dad came one time and brought him aside. You know, my dad was very discreet about it. He didn't want to like criticize him in front. I said, look, Al, he said, the best way to do that, particularly bunting, and making a double play, there were tricks to it that my dad taught me that Al got on my case about it. He said, that's not the way to make a double play, and it was really the way. You could shorten the time you got rid of the ball by at least a half step or a full step, doing what my dad wanted me to do. And Al didn't like it. And he got on my case about it, and my dad talked to him discreetly. And Al said, now look here, Mr. Mullavey, you have your team and I have mine. And we're going to do it my way. We're going to do it the old Georgia way. He was a Georgia peaches, you know. He never let anybody forget it. Hey, y'all, and that was it. And my dad really couldn't do anything about it, and didn't fight him because he knew it was his team. It wasn't my dad's team. And even though my dad may know more, as a professional, he respected his right to have his team. And I did it my dad's way anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
For the most part, you know. Because I knew it would save me. I'd catch a runner in a double play.
Yeah.
There's a difference between out and being safe.